They laughed when I walked out. They didn't know I was walking away with everything. My name is Lauren Mitchell. I'm 31 years old. And this is how I turned their betrayal into my blueprint for power. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you're listening from in the comments. Halfway down the aisle, I heard a sound so out of place it sliced straight through the chore's polished harmonies. I didn't stop walking, didn't let my bouquet slip, didn't let my smile collapse. But every step after that felt different, like the church floor had tilted beneath me without warning. The glass-stained windows were supposed to scatter light and blessing, not accusation. The organ's low, beautiful swell should have wrapped around us like silk, not like a warning bell. My dress, heavy as ocean foam and twice as white, whispered across polished marble, and people turned toward me the way a field turns toward the sun. But all I could hear was that broken, stuttering sob. A woman crying at a wedding is not unusual, but this was not the sound of joy, nor nostalgia, nor the trembling pride of a mother handing her child into a new life. This was grief, a private kind, the kind someone tries to swallow before it escapes. And I knew exactly who it came from even before I turned my head. Ruth, my maid. She stood near the far archway with the rest of the event stuff. Hands clasped at her apron, posture neat, shoulders squared except for the way her fingers shook, and the way she covered her mouth as if the truth inside her might spill out if she didn't hold it in physically. Tears streaked her face. Not tentative, not delicate, but streaming like something important had been ripped from her. My groom Daniel saw her too. I noticed because he didn't look at me after that. Not once. His gaze was locked on her, and the small, controlled smile he wore for our audience faltered, the way a wall cracks before it caves. My bouquet felt heavier. My steps slowed, then corrected because I was a bride today, and brides keep moving forward. Everyone knows that. A wedding aisle is a river, and once you enter it, you do not swim backward. You let it carry you, even if the current changes. And mine had changed. I didn't know why Ruth was crying, but I knew with the certainty of a held breath that she wasn't crying for me. She was crying for him, for my husband. And I hadn't even said I do yet. I should tell you who I was before that moment. My name is Evelyn Hart, and until that sob cracked the ceremony, I believed I understood the man waiting for me at the altar. I believed I knew the life we were assembling, piece by piece, promise by promise. I believed in love, not perfect love, not storybook love, but the kind you build over dinner dishes, shared calendars, and soft compromises. Ruth had been my maid for nearly 2 years. Quiet, capable, careful with glass and secrets. I trusted her, I liked her, and she never once crossed the invisible line between our lives. So why was she breaking apart at the back of my wedding? Why couldn't Daniel look away from her? Questions dug their nails between the beads at my waist, tugging. The officiant's voice was a blur. Words melted into the air like candle smoke. Daniel's hand trembled slightly when I took it, and I told myself it was nerves. People cried at weddings. People grew emotional. That was normal. But nothing inside me believed that voice of reason. Because Ruth wasn't just crying, she was mourning. You don't mourn at a wedding unless something is being lost, or someone. Vows are strange things, not just words, ledgers, contracts of the heart. I had spent 2 weeks writing mine, agonizing over every sentence, asking myself who I wanted to be to this man, who we could be if we worked for it. When I looked up at Daniel, just before I spoke them aloud, his throat bobbed as if swallowing something sharp. I felt the shift again. Something unsaid stood in the space between us. Evelyn, he said, voice gentle, you are my beginning and my. A choked sob cut through his line. Ruth's. She turned abruptly and stumbled away into the foyer, trying to hide herself. The staff followed her with their eyes, but did nothing. Daniel's jaw locked. His eyes flickered not toward the doors she escaped through, but toward the pew where his father sat. A thread. Just one. But enough. I recited my vows anyway. I didn't cry. I didn't shake. Brides are allowed to tremble. But I didn't gift this moment any tears. Something in me, ancient and steady, had begun rearranging. I spoke every word clearly, like someone making a record, a person preparing a file. When it was his turn, Daniel's voice grew steadier, but only on the outside. His eyes kept darting, not at me, not at our families, but toward the corridor where Ruth had gone. He rushed through his promises, skipping a line, losing a rhythm. People chuckled softly, assuming it was nerves. I didn't, because I noticed what he skipped. I vowed to be honest. He didn't say it. He moved directly to the next line. I remembered it later, because I would need it later. The ring slid onto my finger. Metal warmed against skin. And somewhere, applause broke through. I kissed a man whose heart was not standing at that altar with me, not completely as we pulled apart. I whispered beneath the cheering, "You didn't look at me." His eyes shuddered, defenses rising like soldiers behind a gate. "Evelyn," he murmured, "not now." But it was already now. When he signed the marriage registry after the ceremony, his hand didn't shake any more. Mine did, but for a different reason. Because tucked into the final page, and noticed by everyone except the lawyer, who stood quietly by the window, wasn't a datum, a clause, a blade under velvet. If evidence of infidelity before the wedding is discovered, all combined marital assets revert to the bride. Daniel didn't read it. He signed it. And as he did, I heard the echo of Ruth's sob again, not in the air, but in memory, and I knew I would find whatever truth lived behind it. I didn't need a scene. I didn't need confrontation. I just needed proof. Ruth hadn't cried because she loved him. I felt that with a certainty I cannot explain. No. Her grief was different, deeper, older. It belonged to a story that started long before my veil was ever pinned. Daniel folded the registry closed with a satisfied breath. I folded my suspicion into something sharper. The reception doors opened and applause followed us like surf, pushing against shore. But everything was different now, because my wedding day wasn't about love anymore. It was about a truth that had already started to bleed, and I was ready to follow the trail. Even if it led somewhere I would never be able to return from. The ballroom doors opened with the kind of theatrical sweep the wedding planner had promised during our final walkthrough. Gold-trimmed table settings, towering white hydrangea arrangements, candlelight balanced in glass globes, everything perfect, everything curated. But perfection, I realized, is a terrible liar. Too smooth, too polished, it hides things in its shine. Music greeted us first, an elegant string quartet swelling as if nothing in the world had shifted. Guests rose again, waving napkins, cheering, toasting us with already half-filled flutes. Someone yelled to Evelyn and Daniel, as if our names were a spell. Daniel squeezed my hand for show. I let him. A bride does not refuse her groom's hand in public, not without giving the world a reason to talk. I wasn't ready for talk. I needed silence. Silence is where truth grows legs. My eyes searched the room, not for family, not for friends, not for the cameras flashing like stars. I searched for Ruth. She wasn't with the catering staff near the champagne fountain. She wasn't lining the walls with the other servers either. My heart drummed once, twice, harder. She had disappeared. Daniel leaned down, brushing his lips against my cheek as if whispering something sweet. But what he said was, "Don't ask me anything tonight." If he had slapped me, it might have hurt less. I didn't look at him when I answered, "You skipped a vow." His exhale wasn't patience. It was warning. "Evelyn, not here." But everything was already here. Whatever truth existed between him and the woman who had just cried like she lost her whole life in a single breath. We sat at the sweetheart table, positioned like royalty overlooking a kingdom neither of us deserved yet. The first toast was called. Glass chimed. Laughter rose. A friend made a joke about how Daniel used to burn toast in college and now somehow had tricked a woman who could actually cook into marrying him. People laughed. Daniel left. I didn't, because when I glanced at Daniel's father across the room, he wasn't laughing either. He was watching the staff door, the same door Ruth had slipped through, and something in his expression, guilt, dread, recognition, lit the fuse of my suspicion all over again. The first crack showed in a simple detail. The family slideshow played. Childhood photos, sepia-tinted memories, birthday cakes and vacations, and school events. Images Daniel had selected himself, claiming he wanted it to be meaningful and private. I believed that at the time. I didn't now. 3 minutes into the slideshow, I saw it, a gap, a transition that lasted too long, a photograph missing from the lineup. The audience thought nothing of it. Technical glitch. Happens at weddings. But I knew. I had helped the planner draft the original order. There should have been a picture between Daniel at age 12 in a blue blazer and his awkward teenage baseball portrait. A picture his mother once showed me Daniel at a summer house. A girl standing beside him, maybe 12 as well, both sunburned from swimming. A girl with dark curls, a maid's daughter. His mother had said, brushing it off, she had a name. It started with R. The tech team clicked ahead quickly. The moment passed, but I did not let it go. That missing photo became a map. I kept smiling for the cameras, because weddings are theater, and I know how to play a role if I must. But under the table, I slid my phone from beneath the napkin and sent a message to someone I trusted more than anyone else in the room. To Lucas, my lawyer and longtime friend. Message: find out if Daniel has made any large financial transfers in the last 18 months, connected to a woman named Ruth. I typed it with the calm hands of someone rearranging chess pieces. Lucas replied within seconds. Lucas, I can start, but need more identifiers. Me, house staff, possibly connected to his father's previous employment, check property ledgers, and private payroll. Lucas, understood. I locked the phone, lifted my glass, toasted like nothing inside me had started shifting into strategy. The groom left the table to greet guests. I watched him move through the room, shaking hands, laughing in bursts, pretending nothing trembled beneath his ribs. He always performed well, always knew how to shape a narrative. I had admired that once, but now I was studying it, calculating it, and when he reached his father, I saw it. Dana leaned close, his father's jaw clenched, a shirt clipped exchange. Daniel's fingers curled into fists at his sides before he forced himself to breathe and smile again. Then his father said something low, too low for anyone else to hear, but I saw the words form. You promised she wouldn't come. Not she, Ruth. Not an ex, not a secret lover, a problem, a liability, a truth someone tried to bury and invited to my wedding by mistake. I excused myself from the table. No announcement, no drama, just a bride taking a moment to breathe. Or so it appeared. I followed the staff quarter, heels softened by carpet, bouquet still in my hand, because I didn't know yet if I would use it as a symbol or a weapon. The corridor was quiet except for muffled kitchen noise and the soft hum of refrigeration units. I heard footsteps around the corner and paused, letting them pass. Daniel's voice. Not speaking, hissing, are you out of your mind? You couldn't stay home for one day. A beat. I paid you. Double quotes paid. Past tense. A transaction. Ruth answered, voice breaking. You paid me to disappear when I needed family the most. I begged you to tell her, to tell someone. I cried for you. I still do. The silence that followed was not empty. It was full of decades. Full of something older than our vows, older than our courtship, a secret bloodline. Daniel's voice dropped, dark with panic. Ruth, listen to me. You are not. She cut him off. No, I won't pretend I'm nothing. Not anymore. She moved past him, footsteps brushing fast against the carpet, and for 1/2 second, she and I almost collided as she rounded the corner. Her eyes widened, red, wet, exhausted. She froze. So did I. My bouquet's stems creaked under my tightening grip. We stood like that, two women tied to the same man, but not in the way I had assumed. I swallowed once and asked, steady, tell me why you cried. Her lower lip trembled. She opened her mouth. Then she looked over my shoulder and saw Daniel coming. She shook her head desperately, backing away, not out of fear of me, out of fear for me, because whatever truth she carried, she didn't want it to crush me on my wedding night. She whispered, barely sound, you don't know who he is? Then she fled through the kitchen doors. I let her go, not because I was afraid of answers, But because the answer was already forming, I returned to the reception a different bride, not naive, not blind, a woman preparing for war quietly, with diamonds on her hand and a claws waiting like a blade inside a leather-bound ledger. Guests waved sparklers. Cake was cut. Speeches rose, fell, blurred. People danced, and I let myself be spun once or twice. A smile painted over steel. The night grew older. Truth grew closer. And when Daniel took my hand to lead me toward our exit, cameras lifting and cheers rising, I led him because he had already signed the paper. Because all I needed now was confirmation. Because a marriage built on secrets is not a marriage. It is an inheritance of lies. And I plan to collect every piece of it. There's a specific moment in every wedding when the bride realizes the night has crossed a threshold, a shift in the air, a point of no return. For most, that moment comes in laughter, in dancing, in the feeling of belonging. Mine arrived with the taste of metal in my mouth and the knowledge that truth was somewhere in the room. Moving closer, Daniel guided me toward the exit archway as guests formed to sparkling rows outside, holding long wands of pale flame, wedding sparklers crackling like stars in mortal hands. The planner's voice floated above the music. Everyone make a path for the bride and groom. But I slowed my steps because I saw someone return through a side door. Ruth, her eyes lowered, trying not to be seen. Hair pinned back with shaking fingers as though she had washed her face and reassembled herself. One of the catering managers handed her a folded cloth to carry something to make her presence look purposeful. Daniel saw her too. I felt it in the way his hand tensed around mine and in the tiny intake of his breath, sharp enough to cut porcelain. He didn't speak, but his skin said everything. Fear, dressed as anger, a man terrified of a truth that still had breath. I made a choice then. I could let the night end with sparklers and a car waiting to take us into the dark honeymoon, bags packed, champagne chilling, a sweep prepared like a promise. Or I could remove the veil from a lie before I carried it into a new house. So I whispered, soft enough for only him, I want to speak to her before we leave. Daniel did not blink. He did not breathe for a second. No, he said. One syllable, too fast, reflexive. Daniel, I repeated, more a statement than a plea. I need to know why she cried. His jaw tightened. It's personal. So is marrying you. Silence spread between us, the kind that makes flowers bow their heads and candles flicker lower. The planner looked over, assuming we were sharing a private romantic moment, newlywed intimacy. If only. Daniel leaned close enough that his breath touched my ear. You do not understand what you are asking, I answered. You skipped a vow? That stunned him, not visibly, just a shift behind the eyes, like a curtain opening an inch. Before he could respond, the sparkler cue was given, and guests turned eagerly toward the outer doors. Daniel exhaled and stepped forward, performing again. I, however, did not move. I turned away from the archway and walked instead toward the staff corridor. A silence rippled through the guests, not confusion, not judgment, but curiosity. A bride walking away from her own send-off is not a thing people see often. I heard whispers. Is she all right? Maybe she needs a moment. Nerves. Overwhelmed. Yes, overwhelmed. But not by the night. By the lie. I found her near the storage alcove. The hum of refrigeration units. The smell of chilled berries. Dish soap. Stainless steel. This was not a place for wedding dresses and diamond rings. Yet there I was, leaning against a stack of folded linens to keep from sinking into the floor. Ruth stood with her back to me, refolding napkins mechanically, as if the repetition kept her from breaking apart. Ruth, I said. She froze. Her hands released the napkin, and it drifted to the counter like a feather losing height. She did not turn around. You shouldn't be in here in your gown. It's not. Why did you cry? I asked. She inhaled sharply, spine straightening like someone preparing to be struck. I shouldn't be here, she said. Then why are you? Finally, she turned. Her face was blotched from earlier tears, eyes still swollen but holding something stronger beneath the strength of someone who has carried shame that does not belong to them. I came because a person deserves to know the truth before they bind themselves to a family. She whispered. Family. Not. A man, a family. I felt the words sink beneath my ribs like a stone. I didn't push. I didn't accuse. I asked the only question that mattered. Who are you to my husband? She closed her eyes as if the answer was a door she had tried not to open for years. When she spoke, it was a single sentence. I am his sister. The world did not tilt. It reassembled. Piece by piece. Memory by memory, moment by moment. The missing photograph in the slideshow. The matching eyes I never noticed. The father watching the staff door. The payment. Sister. A word with so much weight. And yet she carried it alone. I barely heard myself ask, why didn't he tell me? Her throat worked round an old hurt. Because he wanted a clean life, and I did not fit inside it. Before I could speak again, a voice slid into the doorway. Daniel. His expression was not shock, not even angered. It was resignation. As if he had known this moment would come, but prayed it would happen somewhere without witnesses, without cold refrigeration units, without linen stacks and dish soap and a bride holding a bouquet like a shield made of petals and stems. Evelyn, he said, and the name held more weight than any vow he offered hours earlier. Let's go. We can talk later. No, I said. We talk now. Ruth stepped back as though making space for the truth to stand between us. Daniel's voice went quiet, not soft, but careful, the way someone speaks near a wild animal. What did she tell you? I didn't turn to Ruth. I never looked away from him. Enough. Daniel, he closed his eyes and exhaled once, a man accepting defeat. But I wasn't sure yet if I wanted defeat from him, or confession. The truth did not rush. Arrived slowly, like cold spreading through a glass of water. My father made mistakes, Daniel said, years ago, before my mother even knew. He implied her mother, and things happened that should never have happened. Ruth flinched, he continued. She was told to stay quiet. Money was given to keep things contained. I felt my skin go cold beneath layers of silk. And you? I asked. Daniel's mouth tightened. I didn't know about her until I was 14. And when you knew? I pushed. I tried, he said. I tried to talk to my father, to help her. But it wasn't my decision who stayed in the family and who didn't. Ruth's voice cracked. You were my brother. It was always your decision. The refrigeration fan kicked on, a lonely hum, too loud in the silence that followed. My voice was steady. Too steady. You paid her. Daniel nodded once, shame slicing through his posture. When she found me last year at the estate, I wanted to help, but I knew my father would never allow recognition, not publicly, not without blowing everything apart. Leverage, inheritance, business partnerships. I stepped closer, cutting him off with a whisper too sharp for a wedding night. You didn't hide an affair. You hid a human being. He didn't speak. Ruth turned away, wiping her face with the heel of her palm. I realized then that her tears at the ceremony were not the grief of a woman losing love, but the grief of a woman watching a lie become legal. Watching her brother vow honesty in front of God while truth was buried alive under marble floors and stained glass. I asked one final question. Why did you want her gone today? Daniel didn't hesitate. Because I wanted one part of my life to start clean, not noble, not loving. Selfish. A cleanliness purchased with silence, a cleanliness he never earned. I didn't break. Not yet. Instead, I said quietly, because weddings are about records. You should know something too. Daniel looked up. I added a clause to the registry. His brows drew together. What clause? Ruth turned, listening. I let the words land like a gavel. If evidence of infidelity or moral concealment before the wedding is proven, all shared assets revert to me. Daniel stared at me, color draining slowly from his face, not all at once, but like ink pulled back into a pen. You wouldn't? I don't need to do anything, I said. You already signed. Ruth inhaled sharply. The hum of the refrigeration unit stopped, dropping the room into a stunned, heavy quiet. I won't ruin you today, I told him. Not here, not yet. I want the full truth documented, spoken, acknowledged. Then I stepped back, bouquet lowered, voice calm and surgical. You have until morning. I left Daniel and Ruth standing in the corridor of stainless steel, and wilted flower water, to siblings bound by blood and silence. I did not look back. Looking back is for people uncertain of their path, and I knew mine now lined in legal ink, witnessed, signed, sealed. When I returned to the ballroom, the music had shifted into the part of a reception that wedding planners call the golden hour, when the champagne loosens restraint and the dance floor becomes a confession booth made of sequins and loosened ties. People assumed I had gone to freshen my makeup, complimented my poise, praised my composure. I thanked them, because composure is a currency, and I would need as much of it as I could hold. Daniel did not follow immediately. That told me everything. A guilty man runs. A cornered man calculates his exit. A man terrified of losing everything hesitates. I took a seat again at the sweetheart table. The chair was warm from when I had left it, as if my body hadn't truly gone anywhere. My place carved Evelyn heart stood perfectly upright, as though nothing in my life had tilted. A server came by to refill my champagne. I covered the top of the flute with my hand. No more for me, I said. He nodded, polite smile, and moved on. Sobriety was a scalpel. I needed my hand steadied. My maid of honor, Claire, approached. Concern softened her eyes. She leaned close, dropping her voice to the tone best friends use when the rest of the room doesn't matter. Where did you go? She asked. You look like you stepped into another life and just came back. I almost laughed. Another life, yes, one that had existed all along. Beneath the floorboards of this one, just needed air. I said. It wasn't a lie. It just wasn't the whole truth. Claire studied me. She had always been better than I was at reading people. Did something happen? I kept my gaze on the dance floor, where two of Daniel's cousins were trying to teach my aunt a choreographed dance. Laughter everywhere. Nothing to hint that my marriage was already a legal riddle. Not yet, I said. It took her a moment to process that answer. Her hand found my wrist, warm over the pulse there. That sounds like something you say before a storm. Maybe it is. The planner appeared next, cheerful, clipboard tucked to her side. Car is ready whenever you are, she chimed. The video team is set for your sparkler exit. We'll have extra hands on your gown train so it doesn't catch. I almost smiled. We were far past the point of worrying about fabric catching fire. Not yet, I told her. Her smile dimmed. Just a touch. Professionals notice cracks in perfect timelines. Is everything all right? This time, I lied. Yes. She left, unconvinced, but unable to intervene. Daniel returned at last. He took his seat beside me. Posture perfect. Smile perfect. Everything about him rebuilt into the man people believed he was. If I had not heard the truth from Ruth's mouth, I might have fallen for the performance again. He didn't touch me, didn't try to take my hand. He simply said, we should leave. Now, I turned to him, head tilted. Why? You signed your vows. Wouldn't you like to enjoy the wedding you planned so carefully? He didn't answer that. Instead, he countered with a question men use when they have last leverage. What do you want? I almost pitied him. Almost. To understand, I said. Every detail. His jaw worked, teeth clenched. He kept his voice quiet. You said I had until morning. And I meant it, I replied. But I didn't say you could run from the night. A text vibrated against my leg. I waited for the next toast to rise before checking it under the cover of applause. Lucas, my lawyer, located to payments to a private account connected to a woman named Ruth Harrow, totaling $92,000 across 8 months. More info pending. 90-2000. Enough to erase a person, enough to rewrite a life, enough to purchase silence. My fingers tightened round my phone so hard the case creaked. Daniel noticed. He knew who I had contacted. His eyes closed for a second, not in guilt but calculation. He was rearranging consequences in his head like a man flipping through a deck of outcomes. I stood. Conversation softened as those nearest noticed. Daniel rose a beat later, compelled by choreography, not desire. I spoke to him without looking. We're not getting into that car tonight. He blinked. Where will we go? Separate rooms? That startled him more than any threat. Evelyn, this will look. How truthful it looks, I interrupted. Depends entirely on you. Guests assumed we were heading out for another photo session. The way newlyweds often vanish briefly, I let them believe that secrets survive in silence. But they also thrive in misdirection. We left the ballroom not through the grand exit, but through a side elevator meant for staff and vendors. The floral scent of the reception was replaced by the sterile quiet of service hallways. The elevator door slid open with a soft chime, and I stepped inside without waiting for Daniel. He followed. 4 numbers glowed above us as we ascended. 8, 9, 10. Neither of us spoke. The reflection in the elevator walls showed a bride and groom dressed in luxury and dread. When the doors opened, I stepped out first. I did not go to the bridal suite. I went to the corner room booked under a different name entirely, reserved days ago when suspicion was still only a shadow. Daniel stopped outside the door. "You planned this," he said. "I prepared. I corrected. There is a difference." Then I closed the door between us. Inside, I finally let out a breath I had been holding since the first broken sob in a church. The gown felt heavier now, as if truth clung to the lace. I removed my veil slowly, each pin sliding out like a thought I no longer needed. I hung the veil on the back of a chair. It looked like a ghost had left its skin behind. From the window, the city lights burned gold. Music from the ballroom rose faintly through the walls, joy muffled by drywall and distance. I sat on the edge of the bed and placed my phone on the nightstand. I would not text anyone, not yet. Evidence required precision, not panic. A knock startled the quiet. A voice. "Hello, Evelyn?" "Daniel, I didn't open the door. You have until morning." I reminded him. He stayed there for a long moment. I could hear his breath on the other side. Then footsteps moved away. I did not sleep. I listened to the city whisper against the glass and wondered how many marriages began with lies smaller than this one and how many ended without anyone ever learning the truth they deserved. I sat on the edge of the hotel bed, still in my wedding gown, the weight of it pressing into my thighs like wet silk. Midnight moved across the carpet and Pisa's car headlights sweeping through the windows, a soft glow slipping over my shoes, the bouquet wilting on the table like a witness losing strength. I did not turn on the main light. Darkness made it easier to think, easier to hear my own breath and the beating of my pulse. Steady and cold, the room felt held in suspension, like the world outside had stopped spinning long enough for me to decide what kind of woman I would be when it started again. Would I be a wife or something else entirely? I checked my phone. No new message from Lucas. No message from Ruth. Only one missed call from Daniel. No voicemail. He knew better than to leave a recording. The first hour passed in silence. The second passed in reflection. The third in strategy. I replayed everything Ruth had said. Every expression Daniel had tried to hide. Every choice that now seemed like a breadcrumb I should have picked up sooner. There had always been small signs. He hated family gossip. He bristled when people spoke of his father's business legacy. He once said, "I didn't choose my bloodline. I only survive it." At the time, I thought it was about pressure, wealth, expectations. Now, I wasn't sure. Because what if his father hadn't been careless with one housemaid? What if there were more secrets? Not just one. People who hide children rarely do it only once. A soft knock startled me. Not at the door. At my phone. A text. "Lucas, fence something. Call when you can speak privately." My heart hardened, not in anger, but in readiness. I dialed him immediately. Voice low. "I'm alone." "Tell me." Papers rustled on his end. Lucas always kept files in physical form when dealing with families who could erase digital trails. "There were more payments," he said. "Not to Ruth, to other women." I stood up slowly, not trusting my legs. "How many?" I asked. He exhaled. "To confirmed. One probable. Different years. Same source." A coldness climbed my spine. "Slow as winter. Children." I asked. "We don't have proof yet," he said. "But one of the payments was marked under a guardianship relief fund. It's buried under the father's company accounts." The father. Not Daniel. But Daniel knew, and he married me without telling me that legacy was written in the blood of girls who never had a choice. My throat tightened. "Lucas, I whispered. The clause holds for moral concealment, not only infidelity. If he knew and failed to disclose, then you are fully protected. Lucas finished. But Evelyn, if you use this, you will be detonating his entire family. Are you ready for that level of war? I looked at the veil hanging like a ghost near the window. Yes, I said. If the truth is buried, then the ground beneath it has already been poisoned. After the call, I didn't sit. I paced bare feet on the carpet now, shoes abandoned. My dress brushed my ankles like a creature following me. I thought of Ruth's face in the corridor, how her pain was shaped like truth and survival. I thought of Daniel's voice when he said he wanted one clean part of his life. Clean lives are only claimed by those who know they are dirty. Somewhere on another floor of this hotel, Daniel was awake, calculating outcomes I had already prepared for. A man raised to protect his family at any cost rarely understands a woman raised to expose betrayal at any price. The fourth hour approached. There is a stillness in the final stretch of night, the kind that knows dawn is coming but does not hurry. I felt something shift inside my chest, not anger, something older. Women in my family did not break plates, did not scream in doorways, did not burn letters. We documented. We archived. We did not let liars rewrite themselves. I removed the last pins from my hair and set them on the bedside table, one by one, like evidence. At one point, I did cry, not for losing a husband, but for losing the story I thought I was stepping into, a life I had built in my imagination, detail by detail, now collapsing under the weight of someone else's unfinished sins. I covered my face with my hands and let the tears fall quietly, the way secrets fall unseen, but heavy. Then I wiped them, not to erase the moment, but to end it. Somewhere near 5 in the morning, my door buzzed, not a knock, a keycard slot. I stood still, breath held, until I heard my maid of honor's voice. Evie, it's me, I'm alone. I opened the door. Claire stepped in wearing pajamas and an expression that said she had measured 100 possible disasters and concluded the truth was worse than all of them. I waited, she said. Daniel isn't in the suite. His father showed up there instead. My stomach turned. Looking for him? I asked. No, she said. Looking for you? We sat on the carpet, two women in a dim hotel room, one in silk and the other in cotton. No makeup left. No audience watching. Tell me the part you can say out loud. Claire said. And so I did. Not everything. Not the class. Not the payments. Not the war, but enough for her to understand why my veil hung like a ghost and why my bouquet lay dying without water. When I finished, Claire pressed her palm to her forehead. Oh, Ev, this is generational rut. Double quotasized. It was, and I was about to cut the tree at the root. I told her the plan. After sunrise, I meet him in the presence of someone neutral. He gives a full recorded account of everything he knew when he learned it, and how he concealed it. Then I decide. Claire nodded slowly. You're not asking for my opinion, she said. No, good, she replied. Because I don't want to tell you to be kind. Kindness is not a virtue when weaponized against truth. The first light of morning began to touch the window glass. My wedding day had become my evidence day. My vow day, but not the vow I spoke in the church. A vow to myself. I will not build a legacy on someone else's silence.